And we're live. It is Wednesday, November 26th, the year of our Lord 2025. It is 8 o'clock a.m. The sun is not shining in Washington. The birds are, however, chirping rather loudly. Folks, Alicia and I have both been up since, like 3 or 4 in the morning because we are both insomniacs, and we did not consult with each other on being both up until around 6, at which point, I sent around a text message to the group chat that says, "Hey, who's joining the show tomorrow?" And Alicia asked, "What are you doing up?" And I said, "What do you mean, what am I doing up? What are you doing up?" And we both confessed that we'd actually been up for, in my case, 2 hours, and in her case, an hour. And folks, it is not, a good time to be trying to sleep in either the capitals of our countries. It's just, you know, in one country, it is a just a tripwire to being invaded, and in the other country, you never know which rough beast, its hour come round at last, is slouching toward Washington to be president. Um, and um, and so, you know, we decided the only sane response would be to pour coffee and do the show. And so that's what we're doing. As I say, the sun isn't shining, the birds aren't chirping, but it is going to be a great fucking day because you are watching Dog Shirt TV, and it is a goddamn revolution in morning television. And one of the revolutionary features, of which there are a few, is that today Alicia is not wearing a t-shirt. She's wearing a sweater that could only have come from Norway. Am I right?
You're wrong.
I'm wrong. Where's the
You're
sweater
so
from?
wrong, it's not even funny. It's like from the opposite ends of the earth. It's from Ushuaia
New?
in Argentina.
Oh,
See,
well,
it's
she's
like
wearing
it's
a sweater
llamas,
that.
not reindeer.
Oh, I see. Well, she's wearing a sweater that could really only have come from Argentina, as I was saying. And but she does have the cat mug. And another one of the revolutionary features is that I am wearing, for those who are original, early not dog shirt, in lieu of fun people, I am wearing one of the original dog shirts, um, the one that prompted uh, Virginia Heffernan to tell me that my shirt was nipply and weird. Um, uh,
They're all saying it. Like they've remembered this.
Yeah, well, this was one of the original dog shirts that sparked the dog shirt revolution. All of which is not that long-winded a way of saying that we are not allowed to have fun anymore, but we are allowed to have Alicia here without an agenda, sleepy, um, uh, Alicia, what's on your mind this morning?
Why my internet is so crappy again? Because it's obviously overcast here, and my internet cannot work when it is overcast.
Yeah, that's um, a problem that someday we should have you yell at Elon Musk about. Um,
I'm not even sure I'm riding on his network right now. It's probably my friend's ISP. It is my friend's ISP. We can
and why
switch
is your friend,
to Elon's.
why is your friend's uh, ISP sensitive to cloudiness?
It's WiMAX. I guess something happens in the atmosphere when it gets overcast that makes it a little bit less reliable.
Mm. So, Alicia, is there snow in Ottawa?
I don't know about Ottawa because I haven't been up since last week, but there's no snow on the ground currently. It is in the plus category, but there was snow yesterday.
because I saw pictures from the estimable Eve Gamon that suggested that your region had gotten a little bit of snow.
Montreal had snow. I was there last week, and there was, in fact, as soon as you crossed the border between Ontario and Quebec, the trees were suddenly covered in frost. It was really weird.
And what do we make of this? What does it tell us spiritually?
It tells us that their government is frigid. No, seriously, the government apparently is quite messed up in some of the things that it's been doing. Very anti-immigrant, like spikes, apparently, at least from people I talk to around like hate crimes, essentially, racist kind of acts.
It's not limited to here, folks, despite what uh, uh, a certain guest last week might have you believe.
He
The
said that we
revolution.
don't have racism. He just suggested that we were not going to as quickly descend into civil war as you.
He did suggest that Canada was going to be able to avoid the American Civil War because Canadian government was so effective that it would control the importation of guns. And I think that is, I think the key, the technical term for that is delusional. Um,
I
but
mean, it's true that we have fewer guns than you. But that's not hard. It is also true that the majority of our gun crime outside of domestic problems tends to be with illegal weapons brought in from the US.
right. But my point is not that in the day-to-day run of events in which Canadians are living their lives, you guys don't have less gun crime than
Oh yes,
we
we
do.
have far
But
less gun crime than you. Yes.
that, right, that's what I'm saying. I agree. My point is that in the context of uh, a civil war in the United States,
We're
in
fucked.
which in which uh, large numbers of Canadians will, against your will and against Stephen Marsh's will and against the Canadian government's will, be polarized along the lines of the American Civil War. Um, there will be no state capacity to prevent the illegal importation and storage and hoarding of a large number of weapons because that border is really long and it's really undefended and there's no history of either government successfully keeping contraband from coming from the other when enough people really want it.
Other than opioids, because it's very nominally coming from us. So we're doing a good job. Thank you very much. Contrary to myths.
I would
I
just
got not hate mail, but I got like incorrect, unsolicited email from the public about an article I wrote suggesting stats about how little opioids come from Canada.
Yeah, but opioids don't not come from Canada because either government is effective in preventing it. Opioids uh, come from elsewhere because that's where they're from.
You just can't let us have anything, Ben. I don't. You just want to have another contentious show, is all I'm hearing.
No, I
Listen, if
really
you
don't.
guys,
That
we all know you like it. It energizes you.
did it
The
bother
thing
you? Did it
is,
was that too contentious for you, Alicia?
that show was very contentious for me. It was especially at 8 in the morning. I want to have like a nice chat. I don't want it to be as inane as morning television is on TV, but I'd like it to be less contentious than a
Almost.
CNN show where they threw in Republicans and Democrats and they just talk over each other.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a spirited exchange of views, as the State Department might say, um, as opposed to a frank exchange of views, which would be "you motherfucker." Um,
Listen, if
Uh,
you guys descend into civil war, yes, we're fucked. We can't possibly manage that entire border alone unless we throw all the Canadians at it, just police the whole thing. And even then, we've got some bear trouble. So I'm not sure that's
yeah.
advisable. Actually, maybe that's what we should do. We should train our grizzlies and geese. That'll be our biggest line of defense.
I mean, the geese are really all right. But like, I gotta say, if Trump wanted to issue an executive order about a Canadian invasion, the geese are actually a plausible. There's a better argument that we're being invaded by Canada through geese than there is that we're being invaded by Venezuela using Tren de Aragua. Um, and there are whole areas of my poor city that you can go to that are just like awash with geese. And they're really aggressive, and I think it's great. I'm fine with them. Uh, but uh, but if I were Stephen Miller, I would be looking at them and saying, this is evidence of a Canadian invasion, and armed forces appropriate in response.
I think they call them ground chickens out west. The I was just going to posit that maybe they're not Canadian after all. It's like Spanish flu. You guys just name them Canada Goose because they're so problematic and you couldn't have them being from your country.
We do have a way of naming species after other countries when we don't like them. Um, the Asian tiger mosquito,
So what?
of course,
Is that your
the
nasty
Asian
mosquito in
tiger.
DC that I hate so much?
Yes,
Oh,
we we've figured out a way to blame it. It's not our native mosquito. Our native mosquito is obnoxious, but less so. But it is our local, you know, invasive species. And then there's the northern snakehead, which is, if you've never seen one, Google it. Um, but that one actually we don't at least call the China fish or something. Um, but it is an invasive species from China, and it walks out of the water and lives on land for up to 3 days, and then goes and jumps into another tributary of the Potomac and eats everything. And they are disgusting looking. Uh, yes, just like Stephen Miller. Um,
oh, this just. Yeah, okay. No, sorry. I confused things for a second. Sure, go on.
Anyway, I could go on about invasive species. There
Do you
are,
think there were invasive species before humans started moving around the world?
well, we didn't call them invasive species because they migrated naturally. Now they migrate through us. Um, um,
Just like bad ideas.
just like that idea, it's kind of like the information ecosystem.
Yeah, but with animals, it's sad. See, I don't know. Um, there was something I was going to ask you. First of all, I'd like Carol to know that you did not guilt me out of the show today. Although I
There
did
was
hold
no
out
guilt.
for a better guest.
There was just commiseration about mutual sleeplessness.
There was that, and I was holding out for somebody better to decide to join you. And then the second thing is, John Hawkinson really wants me to rant about you or have some great comeback. And the sad truth is, I probably won't rant unless you guilt me because truth be told, Ben's the kind of friend who, when my colleague ends up sick, the day, hours before introducing my event, Ben was there to step in and do it. So Ben's the kind of friend who will do important things for you very last minute. So how can I not come on the show when he has nobody? That's why the guilt works.
Let me just say about the guilt that the guilt is a joke and a fiction. Alicia knows very well that she has no obligation whatsoever, ever, to appear on the show, that it's just a fun thing to do sometimes over morning coffee. That said, I pretend to guilt her and she pretends to feel guilt about it.
I don't know if I
Um,
pretend. I
and
feel it.
well, okay, I pretend to guilt her and she's neurotic, so it works. Um,
Doesn't take much.
um,
We could talk about something serious.
yeah, let's do it.
Okay,
What?
so I've been following the whole Comey and James trials to a degree, not as
Mm-hmm.
much as you, obviously. And I'm curious if those cases being dismissed on a technicality, as it was, uh, do you think there's going to be a backlash in the credibility of it in certain circles? I mean, obviously the ones who weren't going to believe it anyway, but I'm curious about what your perception in the minds of Americans will be.
Well, it will definitely. It is definitely a suboptimal way to win if your premise is "I am innocent," which both of their premises is. Um, this ruling would be as valid a basis for dismissal if they were both axe murderers, and if there were video of them doing the axe murder. So I do think, if your goal is the maximum discrediting of the charge, this is not the way you would want to win it. Um, and I wrote a column about this yesterday. I have some regret about this that assuming this gets affirmed, um, you know, uh, in the James case, it could actually be refiled. In the Comey case, it probably can't because of statute of limitations
Right,
issues.
right, right.
But but I do think there will always be a little bit of an asterisk that he, you know, got off because they screwed up rather than that he got off because they filed an indictment that was factually untrue on a matter that he's, whatever one thinks of Jim Comey, and people have a lot of reasons why they don't like him. He is absolutely not guilty of this. And I think there is something regrettable about a resolution that isn't predicated on that basic fact. Now, if you're a defense lawyer, you say, Ben, don't be stupid. Um, it's this is a win is a win is a win. They never proved anything in court about him, and everybody knows that this indictment is a travesty, and that's true. But this will this is not the kind of resolution that like Sandwich Guy got, which is a jury saying, "Are you freaking kidding us?" This is a resolution that um, different people will interpret different ways. And I will make a point, I will argue, hey, the prosecutor wasn't lawfully appointed. She couldn't even manage to present the matter to the grand jury properly. She violated his Fourth Amendment rights, his Fifth Amendment rights, the attorney client privilege. And the list of procedural irregularities could fill up the rest of this hour. And oh, by the way, the indictment that she failed to properly procure does not even state clearly that he lied about anything, and he's clearly innocent of it. So you could say, well, he won on point one, and we kind of never got to the rest, and that is probably the best way to understand it. But I do think it's like, Trump said yesterday they got off on a technicality, and you know, the technicality was this particular technicality is one of 1,000 problems, many of which have to do with the merits. But it is true that the nature of the technicality, which is not that much of a technicality. I mean, whether the attorney who's who raced to get this done before a grand jury, in which she had no idea what she was doing before 3 days, because that's how much time she had before a statute of limitations lapsed. Query whether that's really so much of a technicality or whether it's a reflection of just how malevolent these people are, that they would do something like illegally appoint a prosecutor who then like has to take off her heels and put on sneakers to run into the grand jury room fast enough to commit the improprieties that she committed. Um, but it is true that it was dismissed for reasons that have nothing to do with Jim or Letitia James's innocence or guilt.
Yeah, I mean that's generally my sense of it as well. And also, even though that technicality shows that this is really a dysfunctional government that's not really operating the way it should, there's two problems with that. One is that I think many people who voted for him don't think that the government runs properly anyway, so they voted for it to be smashed and burned and done differently. And then the second thing is, I'm sure a lot of them probably suffer from legislative narcolepsy like I do, in that things to do with court systems put them to sleep and are hard to follow. So even the explanation of why these things happen probably would lose the people anyway that would not have been open to believing it anyway. So I was curious. Now, back to the spillover of what Canada suffers when America suffers. Yesterday, it became known that the Ontario government, which is your favorite, obviously, not just because I live there, but because the crack smoking Mayor Ford from Toronto's brother is the current longtime premier of our province, who is a lot like Trump. And if you remember from other episodes, ran ads that got us in deeper shit with your president recently, using Reagan in apparently misleading ways, but yet still truthful. He's come out. Well, it's been revealed that he will be going after radical left wing groups who criticize certain laws that he's tried to implement. So we have yet another playbook page being taken from your dear leader.
Well, the Ford brothers are in many ways proto-Trumps, although it was really his brother who was the real proto-Trump. And for those who have never listened to, there's an amazing podcast about uh, Rob Ford and his history that was, I can't remember if it was produced by the CBC or by the Globe and Mail, but it was a multi-part podcast early in the Trump history that was kind of like, uh, what starts in Canada doesn't end in Canada. That was the sort of underlying theme of it. Although I don't think it ever mentions Trump by name, but it's an amazing piece of work. And, Doug Ford is um, uh, I, of course, enjoyed very much how much he pissed off Trump. Um, but he is not a good guy. And the fact that he could turn around and do something like that right after doing God's work with the tariffs, and Reagan, is a reminder that, you know, first of all, uh, there will never be a great alliance of authoritarian populists because they actually don't have common interests or values. And if your whole orientation as an authoritarian populist is, America first or Ontario first or Hungary first, there is the question of like, where does that leave, like, the other places?
You mean
We're, and
150% tariff on pasta isn't going to win Maloney over?
Right, exactly. And so, like this, they tried this in the Axis, and they actually didn't get along very well, unless it came to invading certain other countries. And by the way, then they would fight about which parts of those countries who got to keep. And so there's not, it's not a good model of international cooperation. And I would just say, just as there are those of us who occasionally have to, cheer for some outcome that Trump achieves, even as we loathe him. Um, uh, just always remember that your relationship with the good things that an authoritarian populist ever does, and there are some, is always highly transactional. And you're allowed to take the good, Doug Ford, and if he makes a good ad about Reagan, yeah, 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 we love it when American conservatives used to be opposed to tariffs, and we love it when people in Canada remind us that we have neighbors, and we should treat people with respect. But that doesn't mean we should admire Doug Ford, and it doesn't mean that until he repents his ways about things like this, we should never confuse that Marjorie Taylor Greene with being on the right side.
I was going to mention her, but also, I mean, Doug Ford decided he would call an election unnecessarily in the midst of the tariff war just so he could get a bigger majority. I mean, self serving when what we needed was leadership. Um, but because he came off as, again, this is just the great a great example of like the strong man gives the illusion of being able to solve problems when it comes to the
Right.
electorate. And I don't think it really matters what side of the political spectrum that strong man and possibly populist comes from. But yes, Marjorie Taylor Greene.
I mean, I think that in some ways the more interesting case, and I would love to have a good Italian political analyst on, is Giorgia Meloni, who does seem to have morphed into a very ordinary conservative politician who doesn't like gay people, from somebody who was much more in the Geert Wilders department. And I'm curious whether my perception of Maloney as having been to a significant degree co-opted by the EU, the deep state, the process of governance is accurate, or whether she's in fact on the ground more radical than I understand.
I hear mixed messages from people.
Well, you
There's
were there recently. Were there goose stepping? Was there goose stepping jackboots in the street?
there was not, and I quite the
The
opposite. But I was.
Italians are never that good at that stuff anyway.
They have great uniforms still. The very, very extravagant military uniforms, their dress uniforms are almost ridiculous. The So we were in Piemonte, and honestly, it seemed a little bit more farther left, like of the old fashioned variants. There was a guy in Alessandria with a table out of anarchist books.
Cool.
It was bizarre. However, I have many friends who have suggested that it's a slide into fascism still. Um, I don't know. I'm going back actually in a few weeks. That'll be my last trip for the year
Where are you going?
to Rome.
Well, one of the cool things about Italy, I have never been to a country where the atmosphere is more different depending where you are, except maybe this one, but like a European country where, you can be in Rome and it feels like blank, and then you go to Florence and you may as well be in another country. There's just something there's something so regionally specific about it, that I'll be curious whether your impressions of Italy of Rome are similar to your impressions of the Piedmont.
I've been to Rome before. I
No,
sorry, I've been.
I know that, but I mean your impressions of the current atmosphere in Rome.
Yeah, I mean, capital cities are strange at the best of times. I mean, I think on one hand, a city like that is so full of tourists. It's hard to get a beat. Although I will be doing things with Italians, so that should be interesting. The second, actually, I just asked a friend whether he's got an analyst or somebody he can recommend to come on and talk about Maloney. The second thing is, they're usually kind of big and cosmopolitan. Sometimes I think they're a little bit more, liberal in general, like Madrid, for example. If I was surprised to find out how liberal it seemed, and Berlin, right? But actually, you're talking about European countries being really different. Do you not find there's a huge difference between the north of Germany or Berlin and then Bavaria?
Sure, these are huge cultural differences, but I don't often find that the political atmosphere is that different. I mean, Berlin is different from other German cities politically, but it feels like, you know, um, I don't know. I feel like Italy has this quality of it can be really politically intense in certain places, and then you go somewhere else and it's like people sitting in coffee shops and sipping coffee, and it can be
That's
really,
just
really,
Italians.
yeah, it can be,
Like,
but it's
oh, we're
really,
revolting
really
now, but
regionally.
now we need coffee.
Yes, exactly. Um, and look, we're kind of like that, you go to like there's a million frog march in Washington, but you go to New Orleans and it's the Big Easy, right? I mean, uh, but we're big. Italy's pretty compact and it's a short train ride between these places which feel very radically different to me.
I mean, I think what's more starkly different, and I haven't been to the south. This is like only hearsay, is like how different the south of Italy is compared to the north. And I would say, I mean, even,
They
Rome,
haven't been one
Tuscany to
country for that long.
Piemonte.
I mean, they haven't been that one country for all that long, although neither has Germany.
No, Germany hasn't either.
Yeah, same 1870-ish period.
The
Anyway, sorry, I
last the
interrupted you.
last war, I had a direct ancestor fight it.
Um, yeah. Um, all right, what else is on your agenda? We covered Comey and James. We've covered a glib approach to Italian regionalism. Um, uh, Covered Doug Ford. Greek
Cranked
chorus.
internet.
Any subject? Yeah, we've covered Elon Musk. Um,
No, I literally just changed the internet. See, there's going to be a comment in the chat about like, oh, look, she's clearer.
you know, I just see the true Alicia through the haze. It's 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 okay. You don't have to see Alicia in with crystalline clarity. If you are listening to this later on the podcast or watching it later on YouTube, you are seeing Alicia and she looks crystal clear because she's recording locally. But if you are seeing it live, she's a little bit fuzzy, and that's a reflection of the fact that she did not get a good night's sleep, and so she's just feeling a little bit fuzzy.
First of all,
Right.
I prefer to be blurry.
Yeah, it's actually that's actually the way she looks. She's in perfect focus. She's just a little blurry. Frank, good to
Morning.
see
How are
you.
you?
So good.
I again have my baby cannon mug,
Oh, the baby cannon
which I
mug.
reserve for the mornings when
Wow.
I can join live and show it off. But what I want to take the lull in conversation, take the opportunity to remind people that the American Bar Association Silver Gavel Awards entries are now open. They honor uh, works in media and the arts that um, advanced public understanding of law and the legal system. Now, Ben, I don't know if you know anybody in this field or not, but uh, anyone who's journalists, documentarians, and whatnot who publish can submit their entries. I'll drop a link into the chat for you, and then I'll put it on the YouTube later tonight for anyone who's watching. But if you Google ABA Silver Gavel Awards, it'll come up. Past winners include Bradley Balco. He was from Old and Little Fun, and I'm blanking on them right now because I didn't write out a list, which I should have done. But you can find them on the website too once I drop the link in the chat.
Super cool. And does one nominate oneself or does one nominate
Uh,
others?
well,
The
You're
reason I
supposed to
ask
nominate
is
others.
good question. If you want to
the
nominate
reason I
others,
ask is
you
that
should send them to me in an email. And I'll drop my email down there too. Otherwise, it's self nomination. So I often will just stalk people on Twitter or Blue Sky. And when I see that they've got a book coming out, I will tell them that they should enter for a Silver Gavel Award. So I can do that.
very cool. So I have always had a policy of not submitting lawfare material for awards, prizes of any kind, for the simple reason that nominating people is very time consuming. And I am thinking it is time that I change this policy because we have enough of a cadre of young people now for whom it would be professionally advantageous to win some of these prizes that I think we should um, be a little bit more assiduous in organizing ourselves for them. As long as it was just me and Jack and Bobby and a few old people and some staff, I thought it was not a good use of anybody's time. But at this point, we have a staff of 15 or something, and a lot of them are people that uh, these awards would be good visibility for and would be uh, useful for lawfare to be seen to receive. And so, thank you for bringing this attention to my attention, and I will take a
I
look at
will
it.
say that so all of the awards are selected by ABA members. I have no pull on this in any way, shape, or form. But one of my little dreams is that Anna Bauer might, for the Witoad uh, article, get some sort of recognition because I think that's fantastic. But
Well, I will tell her you said that,
it just use
and
some humor. They tend not to be very funny projects.
yeah, well, that's the thing. Trump does not bring out the humor in a lot of journalism, but I think that both the Witoad piece and the Lindsay Halligan piece were laugh out loud funny. And I think you have sparked an idea in my head, and I like this idea very
Excellent.
much.
Well, let's get back to the rest of the conversation. I will say though, I really love when we have Canadians on. I can feel like I'm more in touch with the rest of the continent without having to read. It's a very efficient. Right? Have a good day, everybody.
You're a great American. Um, I
So I
just
take
want.
it, wait, hold on, Frank. Frank left. So I take it Frank isn't doing Make America Read again.
Well, we're gonna let him speak for himself. Um, so uh, yeah. um, so this is actually been a matter on my mind. Should we be aggressively submitting lawfare stuff to prizes and awards and stuff? And it's one of the questions that as we get bigger and bigger, we have to think about. And um, these are like doing a submission properly is a complicated little project. And um, uh, things I never thought I would ever have to think about as a
Publisher?
nonprofit executive, because I never thought I would be a nonprofit executive. Um, but yeah, who knew?
I don't know. Frank did.
He did.
But so does I mean, other people can also nominate.
So that I don't know. I haven't looked at the form yet, but who
You
the
should, you could just share the little link here on the screen. Here's the link to the Silver Gavel Awards.
yeah, here it is. And yeah, so most of these things, the nomination has to come from the organization,
Well,
and
then you need to get busy.
and um I actually find certain prizes to be actually distortive of good journalism, particularly some of the Pulitzers, where organizations really deform their whole coverage of things in order to maximize their viability. It kind of does to journalism a little bit of what US News and World Report rankings do to universities. And uh so like I have pretty mixed feelings about it, but I do think um the our the change in lawfare's visibility and posture and role probably necessitates a change in my attitude toward these things. Auntie Ruokonen,
Moi moi.
joining us from some of the few short hours of daylight in Finland these days. What's on your mind?
Yes, so first of all, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, excellent. I was worried about my mic, but anyway, uh, I was listening to the conversation you had previously with Nasty about anti-Semitism, and I had to check what the situation was in Finland from the global index.
Not a
Uh,
lot of Jews in Finland
I
to
was gonna say,
no,
how
maybe
many
pay
are
attention
there?
toward, but
uh, I was actually I knew that the number was minuscule, but it's 1,300.
right.
That's low.
Yes. By contrast, uh, so the I'm trying to think of what the largest Jewish community in the area is. It's probably Germany. But I
Right.
believe there are something like 50,000 Jews in the Berlin area alone. I just pulled that number out of the air, so don't hold me to it. But Sweden has a small community, but it's much larger than 1,300. Um, yeah. So sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I mean, as far as I know, there's only one synagogue. It's in Helsinki, but I would gather that there is no police presence outside its doors.
That would be uh I would think plausible in Finland.
Yeah,
It is not the norm in European capitals right now, even in Western European capitals. And there have been some awful, awful incidents in Sweden, particularly in Malmö. There's a famous incident where an Israeli secular reporter just put on a kippah and filmed himself walking around the streets in Malmö. And the reactions were astonishing.
Wow. Yeah.
And so, Scandinavia is not immune at all. Finland, of course, which is not Scandinavia, has a I have not heard of any substantial incidents in Finland.
Well, Ule had reported back in 2021 that the synagogue there was spending 250,000 or something on security. It
Oh,
had been vandalized.
oh, damn.
So sorry. I
but
mean, it's
but
better now. That
Yeah,
was 4 years ago.
yeah,
Maybe it's better.
so
yeah,
2021 is a while ago, right? Like
yeah,
if the last reported substantial incidents are 4 years ago, that's a different picture than, that's not going to be
Mm.
true in London. Um,
right. Yeah,
and now and look, the last year and a half, 2 years since October 7th, there has been huge spikes everywhere,
yeah, yeah,
including in New York City, right? I mean, it's not,
And here.
yeah, I mean, it's what Montreal has been awful, awful, awful.
Yeah.
And
They're awful to everybody who is not Quebecois right now. Sorry.
well, I'm not going there. I'm just saying there
Mm.
have been a lot of incidents in Montreal. And so
Mm.
I'm um I don't I think what's fascinating about Kiev is that the synagogue can be essentially undefended. Um and yet you can have an interaction like the one that Nastya had
yeah,
yesterday,
yeah,
which is, not violent, but it is old school primordial ooze kind of anti-Semitism.
yeah,
And
yeah,
um I think that's a genuinely unusual combination. You go to most places where you can have interactions like that, and they have to protect the synagogues, and they don't have Jewish presidents, right? And there's
yeah,
something there's something fascinating going on in Ukrainian political culture that these things can coexist rather smoothly with one another. Did you look at the ADL data on Finland?
I did. Yeah, I mean, it was the level of anti-Semitism. It had gone down in the
Yeah,
recent years. I think it was it something like 14% previously, and now it was 9 or something
yeah.
like that.
So the ADL data on this subject, by the way, is really, really good. It is I know people don't like the ADL for all kinds of reasons, but this project is actually a wonderful project and it's very transparent how they do it, which is, they have a series of questions that they ask people. Carol, I'm going to keep you muted for background noise. Um, uh, they have a series of questions that they ask people whether they agree with or what that just reflect different forms of ideational influence of anti-Semitism,
Right.
and they do it regularly all over the world. And so it's a very good database to look at over time. I wouldn't take specific country comparisons that seriously, in the sense that, you know, is 14 to 9, is that a meaningful change or is that random variance?
Yeah.
But when you see a country that's in the 9 to 14 range versus a country that's in the 30 to 35% range, which is where a lot of the Eastern European countries are, that reflects something real. And it's the
Yeah.
likelihood that somebody's going to walk into a cafe and tell you that the president can't really be a Ukrainian because he's Jewish,
True.
right?
True.
And I I think uh, it's a it's a really useful project just for kind of you wouldn't want to use it for specific stuff like how but I think as a portrait of kind of ideational penetration of certain ideas, it's very useful. Um, Carol, what's on your mind this morning?
I just wanted to kind of complicate things and I may have misunderstood this, and maybe it was talked about it on DSTV before I started joining. But I just finished Jonathan Rauch's Cross Purposes book, and in it he refers to himself as saying something like, "This is not my country. We just share the space," or something like that. I don't remember the exact quote, although I have it written down. I could go look for it. But just, in the same context as, Zelensky's not really Ukrainian. And it struck me as a little bit jarring. And I do know of other examples where people, Jewish people, have sort of themselves thought of themselves as separate. My friend's father, who fled Eastern Europe, used to say that Stalin was worse than Hitler because Stalin killed his own people. And I'm like, wait a minute, the German Jews weren't German people that were part of who was killed? So I'm just kind of wondering how this stuff all fits in with everything.
Yeah,
Has it made any
so
sense?
I have a few thoughts and about that. So the first is that different Jews take very different attitudes toward these questions, and it is the kind of a norm in ultra Orthodox circles not to take any states that seriously. You know, you have a kind of transactional relationship with states. You live outside of time and space in political terms. And if you walk into, Lakewood, New Jersey, or um, certain parts of certain neighborhoods in Jerusalem, you are walking into a different, a world that is, yes, it shares a space with a state, but it is not really part of that state, at least
Well,
not
and
spiritually.
people did keep getting kicked out of states. So,
Right. And so they have a sense of uh, 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 this is where we live right now, and we will work with this state for purposes of, but we don't ever think of ourselves as of it. And I think a lot of outlying religious movements are like that. I don't know, um, you know, as much about some others, but just a sense of um, there are, on the other hand, people who, you know, feel extremely American and run for office in the United States and, are American nationalists, right? And some of them, most famously Joe Lieberman, right, is an Orthodox Jew, right? So it's not a reflection of how religious you are, although it can correlate with certain movements. It's a reflection of it's an attitudinal reflection of what your sense of the relationship is between um, different corners of your identity. So I um, now that is wholly different from the view of the anti-Semite, which is that, which really actually this dates from Wagner, the belief that the ideological belief, Wagner wrote a whole book about it, that the Jew can never be a German. Right. This is it's the idea is actually older than that, but Wagner was one of the theoreticians of this idea. And when you walk around Kiev saying our president is not really Ukrainian, that's the lineage that you're tapping into, and that's not a lineage of Jewish thought. That's a lineage of the anti-Semitic nationalist thought that kind of it has roots in that's much older than that. Um, Remember, Jews were not citizens until the French Revolution, and even their citizenship under Napoleon was a contested matter, right? And so it's quite old, but it has these intellectual remnants that's quite distinct, I think, from the Jewish attitude, which is a reaction to that, which is kind of never forget that they, meaning non-Jewish, the non-Jewish polity, always has a question about whether we're really part of this country, and so we should remember that, which is, in the parlance of 19th and early 20th century thought, this was called the Jewish question, capital J, capital Q. And of course, when Hitler talked about the final solution was the final solution to the Jewish question, right? So, like, this is our Jews part of our society thing is super, super. It's really old, and the Jewish sense that we're of it, but we're never really of it, is a reaction to that reality that there are these spasms of denial. And Ev
Nick
Gamon's
Fuentes.
shown up.
So can I quickly just sort of reduce this to, so the feeling that Jonathan Rauch has, it's an internal personal thing about feeling that you belong or not in a larger society, whereas the anti-Semitic view of the person who said Zelensky's not a Ukrainian is the exterior rejection of the possibility that Jews could be actual citizens of another country or could be actually part of it. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Jonathan grew up as a Jewish kid in a non-Jewish area, Phoenix, Arizona, and he is, and I don't want to speak for him, but uh, I think certainly feels very American, but also never forgets that he is part of a people that's 3,000 years older than America, and that there's always a chance that America will turn on. And so you have that bifurcated set of ideas in your head all the time. Um, Ev Gaman.
Thanks, clears it up. Thanks.
Question for Ev, for Albert, as it were. Ev, I need you to clear something up that's happening in the chat. I've told everybody that Quebec has better food than the rest of Canada. Do you, for Thanksgiving, put marshmallows on top of yams?
Thanksgiving.
Okay, but would you ever, under any circumstances, think it's a good idea to put marshmallows on top of yams? Really?
But but here's the problem. You're asking Ev a food question, and Ev's answer to all food questions is no, because she doesn't eat.
Yeah, I'm
I've seen it
softening on
eat.
that. Yeah, I do eat. I'm anti-commanding food, but I am opening up to the wonderful effect of food on people and community. So I am softening on my anti-food stance.
So
Ev and I
Ev,
have had dinner together. I've watched her
Oh, right.
eat.
No, I do eat. I do eat.
You are barely audible,
Oh,
and we
sorry.
have 1 or 2 minutes left. But what's on your mind?
Well, I showed up to discuss your story from yesterday, your story about anti-Semitism, um, which I listened, which of course I was there, and it's mainly like accurate. Well, I would say like factually 100%. But the feeling I had about it was quite different. And we spoke about it a little more about this morning. And at the end of the day, I think we aligned. But you spent a long time in your monologue-ish story talking about how the guy was violent and was threatening to like burn down his ex-wife's farm. And he did say that. But at no point I felt like I should call the police and should say like, well, I guess that guy's dangerous. And afterwards, he indeed went on an anti-Semitic rant. But again, it was like less than a month after October 7th.
It was very genial anti-Semitic rant.
And yeah, at no point was I afraid that it was clear that it was less than a month after the attack. We were in a cab. We knew you were Jewish. We knew you were at a conference about the war in the Middle East, which you clearly opposed. I was never scared for you or for me.
No, neither was I. I was mildly fearful for his ex-wife. Um, but no, I did not mean to imply in any way that he was threatening toward us. In
But
fact, he was very pleasant, which was why I felt comfortable telling him that I was in fact not merely Jewish, but was the Jew who actually ran everything. Um,
remember, like, are you sure you actually said that you were 100% Ashkenazi Jew?
yeah, I'm definitely sure I said that. I said he asked me, "Are you a Jew?" or "Are you Jewish?" And I said, "I am 100% Ashkenazic Jew." And then I told him I wasn't just a Jew; I was actually part of the cabal that actually ran things.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
that was totally something that was discussed, and it was again very funny, very pleasant, if but
right.
it was that's what was disconcerting. It was so profoundly anti-Semitic, so profoundly like Jewish space laser level.
Yeah, yeah. You were much more shaken by the whole thing than I was, because we got out of the cab and Ev just said to me, "Does stuff like that happen to you often?"
The thing that was shocking, I think, is was how profound and deep it was, and how unashamed he was about it. Like it was so.
Oh,
Whoops.
she's
It was
muted.
not. It was kind of like, yeah, everyone agrees that Jews run the world, and like I'm not ashamed of saying that to you. It's not even like it didn't even cross his mind that it was something that you shouldn't put on.
Right. Just like it didn't even cross his mind that when we said we were at a conference on the war in Gaza, his reaction was, yeah, he didn't like neocons getting us into wars.
Yeah, and I gotta say that at that point I didn't realize, like when we talked about it later on, you explained to me that from this moment on,
Yeah,
all
from that moment on, I knew where the conversation was going. It was
but I
just
did.
how long it was going to take to get there. All right, folks, we got to wrap. I have an announcement. There is no show tomorrow. You can show up, you can hang out here. You're always welcome, but I'm not going to be here because I'm taking the day off. Friday, there will be a show. We're going to be here Friday. I don't know if Ev's going to be here. I don't know if Alicia's going to be here, but I'm going to be here and you're going to be here, and it's going to be a blast. We will see you then.